Continuer cette journée en espérant que vous avez bien mangé et que vous avez bien échangé entre vous. Nous allons continuer avec Encieh Erfani. Elle est chercheuse à l'Institut Périmètre situé à Waterloo, au Canada. Elle est aussi cofondatrice de la communauté internationale des universitaires iraniens. Elle va nous parler de l'apartheid de genre en Iran. Sa présentation va examiner en fait les structures juridiques et sociopolitiques qui soutiennent cette oppression et son impact sur les droits et la dignité des femmes. Sa présentation met également en évidence la résistance courageuse des femmes iraniennes contre ces injustices malgré de graves répercussions en sensibilisant. Et cette présentation appelle surtout à la solidarité mondiale pour démanteler la discrimination fondée sur le sexe et défendre l'égalité. Oui, du coup, elle va faire sa présentation en anglais et après, pour les questions, ça dépendra si vous voulez les poser en français ou en anglais. Voilà, peu importe.
Hello,
Encieh,
everyone. May I start?
you can start.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for invitation and for having me. And I'm deeply sorry that I cannot attend the meeting in person because I'm not living in Europe anymore. And I hope you enjoyed the event as much. And as you inform, I'm going to talk about what's happening in my country that we really call it the systematic discrimination with under the umbrella of the gender apartheid. I'm just trying to make clear what I mean by that and how we can help. So what are the aspects of the gender apartheid in a country like Iran, or we can also extend that situation to the neighbor country of Iran, Afghanistan. So I will just give you an introduction about my country and also what's going on there right now, especially after the revolution in 1979. And I will tell you what I mean by gender apartheid and why in general it matters in case of science and how we can act to avoid this kind of systematic discrimination. Just to tell you that about my country, Iran. Iran is in the middle of the Middle East somehow, the only country with non-Arabic language, so we speak Persian there. So you see the neighbor countries here, the Persian Gulf and also the Caspian Sea, that gives us a neighborhood with Russia. And the population of the country is 89 million. So this means that half of this population are female. And imagine that how it could be this the systematic discrimination affecting the life of more than 40 million people. So what I mean by gender apartheid in Iran, I should clarify that in Iran, when you talk about gender, it is just female and male. So in Iran, even talking about LGBTQ is completely illegal and it can have severe punishments, even sometimes the death sentences if you say that I'm part of this group. So when I'm talking about gender, just think about female and male issue. And regarding the gender apartheid, which of course is the discrimination against female and male, this is a systematic segregation and oppression based on gender, legal and social discrimination. When I'm saying legal, because it's completely part of the law, that regime has done it in 1979. I just give you some statistics that, of course, coming from the international organization, that they don't even have access to the real data, but shows the reality, what is going on in my country. In the case of the Gender Inequality Index, published in 2021, Iran is 1915th country among of 191. And in the case of the Gender Gap Index, Iran is 143 out of 146 countries. And I'm also telling you that these numbers are not coming from the real data from the country. And of course, in my point of view, the situation is even worse. So maybe I can really stop, the talk here, because these numbers show that the reality of my country in general. But I wanted to tell you that how the regime can really do such kind of inequality with the name of the gender apartheid in Iran. They started at the age of 6, which I tell you why at this age. And although women in Iran, the number of the female students in the university is over 60, which is quite strange that how it could be the number of the students is that high number, although there is this huge discrimination. But the female are really underestimated in the STEM fields that we are interested in this talk. But I will let you know how it works. The point is that women are banned systematically from studying specific field in universities. So for some subjects, you are not even allowed to participate in the entrance exam to go to the university. And although, as I told you, more than 60% of the university students are female, but the employment rate in unemployment rate of the among female is more than 50% among the ones that they have a university degrees. So you can imagine that the situation is terrible there in case of the female that they have university degrees. I'm not even talking the ones that they don't have that high education. So there are legal barriers to work in male-dominated STEM sectors, which is much harsh than what you face in democratic countries. And one of the important things that affects a lot the life of the females in Iran is the mandatory hijab laws that you hear about, and especially the women life freedom movement that happened almost 2 years and a half ago in my country, that was against the killing of a girl in a morality police of Iran. That also affects the life of you everywhere, that I will let you know. Let's go somehow what happened in my country. These pictures are the pictures of Iran, universities of Iran, especially Tehran University, which established in 1934. And you see the girls and female students inside the university. And you know that how open was the environment for female to go to the university those days. And this picture is the picture from the literature department in Iran. And you see that even there are females with hijab, because hijab was part of somehow the culture because of the big Islamic country. So the Iranian female, even before the revolution, they were wearing hijab, but it was not mandatory. So you were really free to have your own dress code as you like it. But now it is really restricted, and I will let you know that how restricted it is. So this was the situation of the Iran before 1979. And also even you see that female Iranian PhD students are part of the nuclear energy program of Iran in 1968. That shows that how the university level was really high in Iran, and even females were really involved in really programs and projects that they were not even common issue in some other democratic and developed countries. So what happened later in Iran, it comes from the revolution in 1979, which was Islamic revolution. What happened after the revolution? The permit of the education, permit of work, permit of traveling outside of country, permit of divorce, having your children after your divorce, permit of having even passport to be able to travel, and permit of doing even surgery if you are in a really critical situation, go hospital and do the surgery, is in the hand of your partner. And when I say by partner, means the ones that you are in a marriage status, because in Iran, having the relation out of marriage is completely illegal and it can have a really harsh punishment. And it's not really defined that you can have a relation outside of the marriage status. But if you marry legally, all of these permits will be in hand of your husband. So imagine that how it's complicated for a person who is educated to losing all these rights just because of marriage. But this comes from the rules of this Islamic regime. And you can see that how the systematic discrimination happens. So you have no choice. So how they do it? I told you that they started from the age of 6 when you go to the school at the age of 6. And this is the typical school in Iran. You see the girls that although they are not at age of 9, because with respect to the rules of Islam, that this regime claim that females should cover their hair and also having a specific dress at the age of 9. So before that, you are free not to wear hijab. But in Iran, when you go to the school at the age of 6, you are forced to wear a hijab. So if you don't do it, you will not be able to go to the school. So this, as I said, it starts from school. And your parents never question that one, because if you question it, there is no way to educate your children. So they should obey the rules. And you see that it seems the girls here are having a really colorful dress, really, really coloring. But the teacher is wearing a really extreme hijab, really black. And how this is the reality that what happens. And this school is not even a typical, because if you go to the high school level that the girls becoming at more ages, you see that they are not even allowed to have that colorful clothes. So you see all these girls in the school, they are wearing the same clothes, really dark ones, really long clothes to cover their body completely. And they are not really free to wear whatever they want to. And this picture is really new because it happened after the women life freedom movement, that in many schools, the girls remove their scarves inside of the classes, and in the case of the protest. And you see that because of the dangerous issues, they don't show show their faces because it could be a big punishment for them. So how regime tries to control these schoolgirls that they didn't want to obey the rules of the system anymore. Maybe you hear that in Iran after this movement in 2022 and 2023, it was almost last a year, that there were chemical attacks at schoolgirls. So nobody really knows that what happened. Many students of order of the thousands, they were poisoned by these chemical attacks, and nobody even know that what is the structure of these chemical attacks, because there was no legal investigation to see that who has done it. But they did it all around the country, so it was really clear that there is an extreme religious group behind all these things trying to control the girls inside of the schools. So it was a really terrible. There is even statistics that one or two students also have been killed because of these chemical attacks, but we don't have numbers to prove that. So you see how the regime really trying to control the ones that they go against of these rules after 45 years. So what is the effect of all these discrimination in the case of science? So of course you are going to have a limited access to education because regarding the tradition in Iran, the age of the marriage in Iran is 15. So imagine it's even lower than the age that you will consider as an adult in many countries. So imagine that in many rural countries, the families force their kids, especially because of the poverty, to marry in a really low ages, at the age of even 13 or 14. So that's how that laws allows these girls, somehow force them to marry in really low ages and become a mother as well. So this means that they have a limited access to education in general. Key scientific fields, because in some fields you are not even allowed to go to these fields, because in Iran we have an entrance exam to go to the universities. And of course, there are many barriers in this male-dominated and of course gender-discriminated society that you cannot even get the position in advanced level. And of course, the academia, as everywhere, is dominated by males, and that's that how your employment will get biased. So all these things cause Iran to be the first country in the case of brain drain. Then you cannot imagine that how many talented and educated people that we lost because of all these rules that they're leaving country, especially that even for females, it's really complicated because, as I told you, if you marry, you will not be able to leave country. You cannot even have a passport. So imagine that how difficult for a girl if they want to find their path, even to leave country if they are married. And if you are also single, also there are also many barriers from your family as well. One of the famous females that we lost because of the brain drain was Maryam Mirzakhani, that unfortunately she also passed away because of cancer at the age of 40. And she was the first female who got the Fields Medal, which is equivalent to the Nobel Prize in mathematics. But I just wanted to tell you about the history of Iran, because we realized that somehow all this discrimination is based on religion. And in the case of the religion, they force females with the rules of Islam to wear hijab and not having the permit for education or whatever, regarding the rules that their husband has the right to control them, or if they are not married, their father has right to control them. But the point is that if you go to the history of the Iran and you see to the pictures and also some artistic issues, you see that hijab is not part of the culture in Iran. It just happened after the Islam that came to the part of the Middle East, and of course Iran also was part of that. So these pictures shows that even Iranian females, they're really educated, they even participate in art and music, and they do not have these restrictions. But so when they say that hijab is part of the culture of the Iranians, that is not the case at all. And also before the revolution, although the country was Islamic country, and of course we had Islamic rules, but not governed by in general, you see this picture, which is really a famous one. This picture has taken a few years before the revolution in Iran, in a really one of the religious cities, because this is the place that one of the generations of the prophet has been buried there. And you see that they are the females with really extreme wearing of dress code regarding the hijab, and these are the females that they don't do it. So before the revolution, we were really free to choose, and we were really happy to live together. But after the revolution, it became completely mandatory issue. But the point is that Iranian females, they will not keep silent. And from the beginning, because the revolution happened in February, and in 8 March, almost a month later, the females, because we were celebrating the International Women's Day before the revolution in Iran, after that they forbid it. So we don't celebrate that day in Iran anymore. But there were the protests regarding the compulsory hijab in 1979, exactly after the revolution, a month after the revolution. And you see here, one of the females is debating with one of these clerics that they're forcing that mandatory hijab. So the female really tried to continue their protest against all these issues, but the point is that the regime started to forcing the hijab by telling to the females that if you don't wear hijab, you will not be able to go to school. If you don't do it, you will not be able to work. And gradually, they get rid out of females that they didn't want to wear the hijab. So that's how the systematic discrimination started after the revolution. But the people also continued the protest against the regime. Of course, those days hijab was not part of that because we had also many challenges. One of the big ones happened in 1999. You see here is the entrance of the Tehran University, and you see how chaotic the situation is. And of course, most of the time, the university students are in the front of the protests in Iran. And in that protest, 7 students have been killed and 300 have been arrested. And of course, the regime always denied the killing of all these students. They just accepted the kill of 1 student. And in that time, there was a female student, Fereshte Alizadeh, that she disappeared and nobody knows what happened to her. And we have no information about her. Even her picture is not really easy to find it in social media. That's what happened to her. So she disappeared from that time. There was also a big movement in Iran called Green Movement in 2009 after the cheating of the government in the results of the presidential election in Iran. And there was a big movement there. And at that time also, this picture of Neda Agha Sultan became viral because she passed away because of the bullet attack on her heart. And her death video became viral in social media. And you see that how we are paying for the freedom in my country. Something really revolutionary happened in Iran. Just in this 27th of December 2017, a girl called Vida Mowahed, she standed in front of a famous bakery in Iran. Actually, the name of the bakery is French Bakery because, the French cuisine is really great. So this bakery in Iran is really famous, and it's located in a really populated street in Tehran. And she standed up in a high level, which was electricity, let's say, station there. And she hung her scarf without talking anything. It was really clear that she's protesting against the compulsory hijab. And you see that here, people, they don't really pay attention to her. But this girl have been arrested. And of course, she went to prison. But that was the first movement that people did it after all these protests against the compulsory hijab, exactly for the hijab. But nobody could imagine that a few years later, in 2022, the big movement of the women's life freedom will start in my country. So I told you about this movement that happened started in 16 September 2022 because of the death of Mahsa Amini. This picture is the picture of Mahsa just few hours in the metro of Tehran because she was arrested in the exit of the metro. And this is her dress code before being arrested. And you see that it's completely okay with regard to the rules of the country. And of course, the students again were in the front row for the protest. And in 2nd September, the big attack happened in the Sharif University, which is University of the Elites in Iran. It's a really famous one. And we call it Bloody Day. Many students have been arrested and detained, and they lost their right for education for months. And even some of them, they now have the sentences of the prison from that university. But another revolutionary issue also happened in November 2nd, 2024, just a few months ago, that a girl called Ahu Daryai, she wanted to go to the university. And of course, the morality police is also controlling the entrance of the students to the universities. And they asked her to wear her hijab properly. And she refused to do that. And in protest, she removed all of her clothes. So in Iran, seeing a person, a female, with this dress is completely a revolutionary issue. From that time, we don't know what happened to Ahu. She was, the regime said that she had a mental problem, and then she hospitalized her in a psychology hospital. Nobody really know that what happened to her, but we know that she is more or less, the family are really under big pressure. So doing such kind of things in Iran is completely revolutionary stuff. So how the regime really do that? Let's come back to the history. Because the revolution happened in 1979, and in 20th April of 1980, just a few months after the revolution, the leader of the revolution mentioned that we are going to have a cultural revolution. What does that mean? This means that we should clarify the universities from the subjects and from the professors and the students that they are not doing the rules of Islam. So they closed the universities for 3 years. And in 3 years, they banned the students that they were in another political groups, because there was an open environment after the revolution, and many students in different political groups, they did activism. So they arrested all of them. We know that more than 30 students have been killed in the universities of Iran at that time with the attacks that happened. And half of the populations of the faculty members in Iran have been forced to retirement. They lost their employment. And of course, some of them also, they had a chance to leave the country. So imagine that how it could be the half of the numbers of the faculty members in the country just go away because of this revolution. And we know that more than 20,000 of students have been expelled. They never have chance to come back to the university to continue their education, even after passing their jail time. So this was a really harsh issue. And still now we have a committee of the Cultural Revolution in Iran that they are controlling the universities as well. Although now we have in Iran 2 million, around 2,300,000 students and 86,000 faculty members. So we have a Supreme Council of the Cultural Revolution, even after 46 years. And this guy now is the head of, he's the cleric. It's really clear that he's coming from religious background, extreme religious background. He is the one who is the head of this council. And I can just tell you that he's even against of going to cinema. So imagine that how ideological is this person to controlling the University of Iran. How they do it? In Iran, we have a disciplinary committee at the universities. So the members are the president of the university, vice president of the student affairs, agents of supreme leader, because the supreme leader has an office in all the universities of Iran, and his representative is in this committee. And of course, the security guard that you heard about it a lot. So how they do it, in the case of your employment and your evaluation, these people are really responsible. So this committee controls you that if you are allowed to hire in the university as a faculty member, or you can get evaluated. And of course, in your evaluation, they have two parts, scientific part and also ideological and political part. So if you, in this case of the scientific issue, you are great, you are perfect. But if in ideology and political orientation with the regime, you are not in the right side, then you will not be able to get promoted in the University of Iran. So it's really, really restricted. So you have many faculty members that they couldn't pass this ideological and political evaluation, and they got fired from the universities. So how the operations happen in Iran? Of course, they provide the universities when they want to do the pressure on the students, especially the female ones, regarding the hijab laws. They don't give them chance to have the access to university services, especially the dormitories. And imagine that in Iran, if you don't have an access to the dormitory, you will not be able to continue your education, because even as a female, renting a flat is really, really complicated, even if you are a single. So it's really, really difficult, especially also economically, that if you don't have the services of the university, you will not be able to do it. And of course, there are also morality police in the University of Iran. It is not the new thing. It is the case after the revolution in Iran. And for putting the pressure on the students that they don't wear the hijab very well, they don't allow them to register for the new semester in Iran. And even in some cases, they don't even allow them to take their exams. So many of these students, they fail because they were not allowed to take the exams. And that will be a pressure for them not being able to continue their education, because we have a limited time to do our education in Iran. And of course, as I told you, there are security guards inside of the University of Iran, but they are not there to really secure the life of the students. They are just there to control them. And many of them, we heard about the sexual harassment, and these security guards do it just put the pressure on the female students. How we can really somehow support Iranian females, especially in the case of the universities? Even writing and statements in support of Iranian scholars is really important because many in scientific community, when we hear about all these violations of academic freedom that happens in other countries, we consider it as a political issue. We even say that we are not allowed to write a statement because it means that we are interfering in the internal issues of the countries. From my point of view, which is not the case, we have a responsibility to really support each other. So even a simple statement from several universities can put a pressure on a regime that they are doing the violation of academic freedom. So that would be really great to have more of them. And of course, advocating for gender equality and academic freedom in Iran, as I told you, there's a systematic discrimination. So we don't even talk about equity. We talk about equality, which is completely ignored there. And do the advocacy for Iranian women in science, because when they reach the level where you see them abroad, especially, they really pass a really great, difficult situation. So making advocacy for them, it will be really appreciated. And of course, many of these female students, they are looking for the position abroad to be able to continue their education. So it's really great if we have a specific funding for them. Hopefully, some of them have been established after the movement in 2022, but of course, they are not enough for supporting them. And making awareness, through global platforms that what's happening in countries like Iran, Afghanistan, is really a gender apartheid issue, and it should be considered as a crime against humanity. So because it's a legal and systematic discrimination. So we should really consider it as a crime against humanity. And if you have a chance to have a mentorship initiatives or opportunities for the collaboration for these students. And for all of these crackdowns that happens in my country, after these movements in 2022, we established the International Community of the Iranian Academics. This is the first community of the Iranian academics in diaspora. And we really find this responsibility because of two reasons. First, we should report the violation of academic freedom in Iran. And second, we are sure that this regime will collapse one day. And of course, we have a responsibility as scientists and scholars to rebuild the country after that. So we need the community of the academics to have each other to see that how we can really help to reconstruction of the country after this regime, because they did really great corruption in everywhere, including science and everything in that country. So we really need scholars and educated people that they also have an experience abroad to be able to rebuild the society. So this organization, we call it ICOIA. We did a really great job. We have I could say that the complete report of all the crackdowns that happened about the attacks in the university, the students that have been detained, and what the consequences that they already have. So we send these reports for organizations that they are supporting human rights and also the scholars at risk in general. So hopefully 45 years after the revolution, we have the clear information and statistics about what's happening in Iran, that in other cases and attacks, we don't have them, especially regarding the cultural revolution that happened in 1980. So we don't have really enough information from that side. So let me conclude. The gender apartheid in Iran is a major obstacle to scientific progress because it affects your life in any aspects. Of course, that also affects science in general. And addressing these challenges is really critical for an equitable future in science. And international communities, I think, they should take more responsibility to mentioning about these discriminations. And of course, it's really clear that the power of the science lies inside to be universal. So we know that science is a universal language. So we should keep it as neutral as possible and give a chance to all genders to be able to continue science if they are interested in. And when we exclude, we know that we lose, but unfortunately, some ideologies, they don't understand it well. And of course, that their states affected by that, but unfortunately, the ideological issues are that high that they don't see that if they exclude half of the population, they will lose a lot. And of course, when we include, we grow, and I hope one day we never talk about equality in general regarding any gender, because we born equally, and we should also have a chance to live equally with each other. So thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Encieh, for your presentation. Do you have any question?
Ouais, il peut y avoir des questions publiques. Voilà, pour l'instant, il y a une question dans la salle. Je vois pas de main levée à distance.
How does gender apartheid in Iran manifest within the institutional structures of universities and research centers, shaping not only women's access to science, but also the epistemological paradigms that determine which knowledge is produced, validated, and disseminated? I'm asking this also because once I read that even men that is doing research inside the university, they are not able to research whatever they want. So it was not true that they were free to do whatever research they wanted.
That's completely true. When I'm talking about violation of the academic freedom, Iran, it's something completely general. It's also even affecting the scientists, Iranian scientists, that they are in diaspora. Because you know that even right now we have some scholars that they have dual nationalities, that they are imprisoned. Because when they come back to Iran to visit their families, they just get arrested because the regime wanted to force them to be participated in their projects, especially the military and also the nuclear projects, and they denied to do that, and now they are in prison. Maybe you heard about Ahmad Reza Jalali, that he's in prison. He's a male, and he's in prison since 2018. He has a Swedish nationality as well, but unfortunately the regime took him as a hostages. And of course, even now we have a debate with the Swedish government that why they are not supporting him as well. So the violation of the academic freedom in Iran is really harsh. No, there is no doubt on that. And the regime also trying to influence it systematically. When I told you about the Cultural Revolution in Iran, many subjects have been removed from the university, especially the ones that they were related to art and political science and social sciences. And some subject completely removed. Of course, their faculty members, they lost their employment. And even many of them, they get been sentenced because they were teaching some specific subjects that it was not in the orientation of the regime ideology. So the violation of the academic freedom is really, really severe in Iran. So there's no doubt on that. But the point is that female, always when there is a discrimination, they are affected more than male in that system. Because you don't have power, you don't have your community. So if they put you pressure to continue collaborate with regime, so you have less support than male.
Over questions?
Si dans la salle, mais pas aux Zoom.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. I was wondering if there are some way to escape these strict rules for the wealthiest people, because usually there are rules for like the majority of people, well, usually in some cases for the majority of people, but for the wealthiest we can arrange things. Is it the case in Iran too?
Not the point is, in the case of the science, there is no way, because as you mentioned, there are some people that they are in the side of the regime, of course, but the point is that the ones that they are in the other side of the history of the Iran, and they are supporting the regime, they are not the ones that they are educated. So if they were educated, find that what they are doing is completely wrong. So of course, as I can tell you that in Iran, when I said that there is this violation of the academic freedom, regime also tried to train some people to go to the university abroad. There are specific scholarships for them, even in some STEM subjects. So they send them to several universities all around the world just to spy the students of Iranian students that they are there. So even if you are a student abroad, you are not really safe if you do any political acts. So, but the point is that they are in the hands of the regime. So there are specific scholarships for these people, but they are doing it again regarding the ideology of the regime. So they go to these universities, they get trained them. Of course, they get a really high education, and they come back home to be hired in the universities to really controlling the other colleagues that they have. So it's something completely common in Iran that you don't even know that the colleagues that you are talking with him or her is in your side or in the side of the regime, because we know that many of them have been hired just because of spying the other colleagues in Iran. So you can have a chance to have a higher education and also to somehow go around these rules, but it's not possible if you are not in the side of the regime.
That's all.
Thank you for your presentation. It's really important to raise awareness about it, and I'm thankful to learn more about it, even if it's a really sad reality. So in the case that you explain about this, I can say censorship in research in Iran, I imagine that also study subjects that will concern women, like women's health and this kind of subject, also will have a lot of censorship or restrictions, and will affect in a wider manner the life of Iranian women, also in their everyday life or needs, like I said, access to health or other social conditions and needs.
That's a really great point. Of course, that affects also the health and of course the medical studies in general. Because in some subjects, male are not allowed to do some subjects that they are related to the females. And imagine that how it could be that in some places you don't even have enough female doctors to really treat Iranian females in rural places, because we have few of them, and of course it's really also difficult for them to go to these places. And of course males also are not allowed to study these subjects because of the ideology of the regime saying that the body of the female is a restriction, and of course males are not allowed to study these subjects, so which was not the case, of course, before the revolution. So imagine that how that can affect the life of the Iranian female. So talking about some, let's say, studies that consider Iranian females as part of these studies, especially in the health sector, is completely, unknown subject in my country. So you are completely right that affects the life of the real life of the Iranian females in the health sector as well.
I have two questions. So one is more personal. I mean, can you tell us very quickly how come you are now in Canada, and did you work in Iran for some time, and this kind of thing? And also you mentioned Afghanistan at the beginning. So if you can say a few words about the situation of women in Afghanistan, because I believe it's even worse than the situation for women in Iran. Thank you, Encieh.
Yeah, thank you, Maria Francois, for this question. I didn't want to tell about my story because I'm just one of the Iranian females affected by this regime. But when this movement happened in Iran in 2022, I was a faculty member of the physics in Iran. And I resigned from my faculty position in Solidarity. And at that time, I was not in Iran. I was in a research visit in Mexico just for 3 months. It was not that long one. And I resigned, and imagine that a simple resignation worried the regime, especially in that chaotic situation of the protests in Iran. And my family in Iran, they just, received the threatening messages from the intelligence services. And that forced me to stay in exile. So since August 2022 that I left Iran, I didn't have chance to come back home. So it was a really hard situation. That imagine that with limited visa and due to the sanctions imposed on Iranians, we don't even have international bank account. Imagine that with few dollars in my pocket, I just struck in a country like Mexico, really far from every base. And I just moved to Italy because I had a collaboration with an institute there in Italy. They hosted me for a few months. And after that, I moved in Germany to be there to do my research. So it was not a permanent position as well, because, you know, it's really, really difficult to find a job, especially in the case of the STEM subjects. So it's almost a month since February. I got a one-year position in an institute in Canada, Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in Canada. I'm based here. Life is not stable anymore, so I'm looking for another position. So you can imagine that how standing against this brutal regime, even by simple resignation, solidarity with your people, can affect your life that much that you're forced to stay in exile. So this is a short story that what happened to me. Regarding Afghanistan, it is really, really heartbreaking because I had a chance to visit Afghanistan in 2018. I was collaborating with a project called Physics Without Frontier, that established with the International Center for Theoretical Physics in Trieste, Italy. So they wanted to bring physics in a really rare situation. So I sent them a proposal saying, okay, why we don't do this program in Afghanistan? So I had a chance to visit Afghanistan, Kabul University in 2018. And I can really say that the passion for science everywhere is the same, even in a really hard condition of like Afghanistan. But that was before the Taliban get in power. So I could really see the tears in the eyes of the students, especially female ones, that they were really happy that, you know, their country has been considered in a level that we are going there to teach them physics. But unfortunately, the situation was really harsh after Taliban. I was there, the female students have a chance to study, especially in subjects like physics. Of course, the situation in that country is always terrible because we just realized that even in the case of physics, there is no master's studies in Afghanistan. Imagine that how the situation is harsh, that you don't even have a master level in physics and in the other STEM subjects. But we really tried to help these students to establish that program. We did our best, but unfortunately, and I'm also proud to say that we could make a scholarship for these students to come back to my institute in Iran to do their master's studies. Some of these students now, they are doing their PhD abroad, but when the Taliban occupied the country, we couldn't continue this scholarship anymore, so everything just completely collapsed there. I just want to say that what they are mentioning with the rules of Islam is not the case, because you see many Islamic countries that the females have more rights. I'm not saying that their right is equal to the rights of the female in other democratic countries, but the situation is much better than what we are facing in Iran and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the situation in Afghanistan is really harsh. The girls, they don't have a right to go to this school after the level 6, means that after the age of 13 or 12. So imagine that how it could be. Even for future, they are not even going to have the female teachers for these schools, for these girl schools. And of course, females are ruled out even completely from university. That also is going to affect the health sector of females, because we are not even allowed to participate in the medical courses, especially for the subjects that they are related to females. Because with the ideology of these Taliban, which is the case also in Iran, male cannot go to some medical studies that are related to the body of female. So imagine how going to be the situation in Afghanistan after a few years, that if they get lost from the female doctors that they now have, that they are also working in a really extreme situation, how that's going to affect the health sector of half of the population in Afghanistan. So what's happening in Afghanistan, it is terrible, and it's also a shame for humanity that we keep really silent and we don't really act. That's why I'm emphasizing that the gender apartheid should be considered as a crime against humanity. If we don't consider it as a crime against humanity, we will not be able to do anything. So we will just consider it as an internal issue of a specific country. So we will not be able to protect females there. And I hope somebody really listen to this word. Gender apartheid is a crime against humanity.
Thanks again, Encieh.